We are in the middle of an absolute whirlwind of breaking news this evening, and it's showing no sign of letting up anytime soon. Just tonight, Iranian state media announced the son of the late Ayatollah Khamenei has been named as the country's new supreme leader. This comes as U.S. Central Command confirmed 2 more U.S. service members' deaths overseas. The Department of Defense just identified one of them as Major Sorfly Davies from Queens, New York. He died Friday in Kuwait as the result of a non-combat related incident which is being investigated. Major Davies also served with both the New York Police and Fire Department. That news comes one day after President Trump attended the dignified transfer for the first 6 fallen troops at Dover Air Force Base. ABC News asked him today whether witnessing that solemn event gave him pause. Trump replied in part, quote, Not at all. The parent said to me, please win this for my child. This comes as major cracks are starting to form in the Republican Party over the war. A recent NBC News poll found 77% of Republicans are overall supportive of Trump's strikes on Iran. That's a far cry from the universal support Trump has enjoyed in the party for years. That split is just as visible within right-wing media. Many top voices who backed Trump in 2024 are now coming out against the war. Watch.
This is Israel's war. This is not the United States' war.
Bibi's not dumb. He would know how to talk Trump into it, which is clearly what he did.
The only reason it looks like we're in there is just because Israel needs it.
Yeah.
Right? And then naturally, Americans are furious about it.
Joining us now is former New York Congressman Max Rose. He's an Afghanistan war veteran and a senior advisor for Vote Vets. And Peter Beinart, MS Now political analyst and author of the Beinart Notebook on Substack. So, Max, going to start with you here. Is this a real split, given that Donald Trump campaigned on no new wars, America first? It was a big deal to his base. Is this going to actually splinter his base of support?
It's splintering it right now because Donald Trump very clearly lied to his voters, just like he lied to them that he was going to do something about the affordability crisis. What's shocking, though, is when we compare this to the war in Iraq 2 decades ago, where George Bush and the Republican Party maintained a powerful political base for several years. Of course, they went on to win the midterms in 2004, and he won re-election. But of course, then they only had one consistent lie for going to war. Now, just in a matter of 2 weeks, Trump and his cronies have like 5 different lies for why. The 10. First, it was the ballistic missiles program. Then it was the nuclear program that suddenly came back. Then it was the terrorism. Then it was the fact that Israel was going to do it with or without them. Then it was the fact that we don't just need world peace for ourselves, but also our grandchildren, and we had to bomb our way out of it. Then it was the fact that we need to provide the Iranian people with democracy, and the only way to do that is by carpet bombing them. Over lie after lie after lie, and it is clear even to the MAGA base.
I mean, I think it's pretty telling in the clip that you just played there, Elise, from Megyn there on her podcast, I think it was. I mean, she's talking to Eric Prince. Eric Prince?
I think Eric Prince is just jealous, though, because he hasn't been contracted yet.
Well, maybe that is it. But if you have Eric Prince saying that your war is a bad idea, I don't know.
Yeah, and Bolton.
I mean,
I mean, they're caught in this weird position, right? Because they're trying to attack the war without attacking Trump himself. And so what you see Megyn Kelly is saying is basically Trump is so stupid that Israel was able, or Netanyahu was able to talk him into the war. But it doesn't make any sense, right? It's Israel's war, and it's also America's war, right? Because Donald Trump decided to bring America into war, and he decided to allow Israel to attack Iran, because America could have stopped Israel if we wanted to, right? And so I think ultimately it's untenable for them to try to walk this line where they oppose the war without holding Trump responsible for the war.
Max, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries was asked earlier on Meet the Press whether he will vote to block additional funding for the war. Let's listen to that.
As the leader of House Democrats, do you plan to block all Pentagon funding, even if the argument is it is critical for military readiness?
Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it in terms of if the administration makes a request to Congress to consider additional funding.
What do you think Democrats should be doing here?
They should actually be able to separate this into 2 separate points. One, which I think we all would agree on, that when it comes to service members currently stationed in the Middle East, we should not leave them high and dry to fend for themselves with just their boots and their bottle of, their canteen of water. No one believes that. But you need to de-link that. You need to force this to be de-linked from the larger question of continued appropriations for an ongoing war that Congress has not had the opportunity to vote on, to approve or disapprove, an unconstitutional war that there's no proven justification for. That should be the Democrats' position on this.
So then why, from leadership to other members, are we seeing some Democrats kind of signal that they may well, in fact, be fine giving more money to this war effort?
I mean, I think the Democratic Party has really struggled to articulate a clear anti-war position. And I think we're seeing now that there's not only a gap between Republican elites and Republican voters, but between Democratic elites and Democratic voters. And you saw with both Schumer and Jeffries, they have kind of procedural critiques. They say Trump should have come to Congress. Of course he should have come to Congress, right? And they say Trump hasn't offered a plan. Yes, of course Trump hasn't offered a plan. But they're not willing to say the most obvious thing, which is that it's immoral and criminal for us to attack countries that don't threaten us, period. It doesn't matter how bad their regimes are, right? And because they can't say that clearly, I think they can't actually take advantage of the anti-war majority that exists in the country in both parties.
So what do you think is the animating ideology then behind the war, right? I mean, we know it from an Israeli perspective with Benjamin Netanyahu, who has been very clear about regime change, and for a variety of reasons, seeing Iran as an existential threat. Some people don't think that Iran was really an existential threat to Israel, and certainly it's not an existential threat to America. What do you think is the animating ideology behind why Donald Trump decided to go along with Netanyahu in this war?
I think Trump thought that the assassination of Soleimani worked for him politically. He thought that the 12-day war worked for him politically, and he thought that Venezuela worked for him politically. And I think, frankly, he loves the idea of blowing things up. I think he enjoys cruelty, and I think he enjoys using this military as a toy, and he thinks it makes him look big and politically strong. He's not smart enough to understand that this is completely different, and because the foreign policy process is broken and it's a bunch of sycophants there, I don't think there were people who were willing, like Mattis would have in the first term, to say, Mr. President, this is a catastrophe, right? And so I think in that environment, Netanyahu, not only Netanyahu, but Netanyahu was one of the people who I think was able to play on Trump's idiocy and vanity to basically say this is going to be another victory for him.
Max, did you watch the dignified transfer yesterday? So 6 U.S. service members brought home it's barely been 24 hours. We now know about 2 more U.S. service members. One, just tonight, we learned sort of a health-related incident while serving. Are these moments supposed to change a president when they watch young people? I mean, Sergeant Declan Cody, who came back yesterday, just 20 years old. 20 years old. I mean, that's almost a baby, in my view. I mean, you have your entire life ahead of you and a whole family waiting to eat dinner with you and hang out with you. And it was entirely silent. For anyone who didn't watch it yesterday, you can't hear much as these events unfold. But that was sort of all that I was thinking about, was the hopes and dreams and expectations people have for all 6 of the people coming by, and wondering what's going through the president's mind as he sees them and he knows their families are waiting to receive them.
First of all, these young men and women in uniform are the absolute best that America has to offer. And all they wanted to do, they signed the dotted line to make the ultimate sacrifice to this country. And what they expect in return is that our nation's leaders will actually treat that potential with respect and follow a comprehensive, responsible process prior to making these very macro strategic decisions. And in actuality, what we have seen over the course of the last 2 weeks has been the strategic incompetence of this administration juxtaposed against the continued operational brilliancy of our military. But this is a situation that nobody could get out of with perfection. But what I would also say here is that this is not the first time that Donald Trump has done this type of ceremony. So it should have already been ingrained in him, the potential for this sacrifice. And unfortunately, it appears that it wasn't.
Where does it go from here, Peter, if we continue on this path of complete disregard for any international norms. And I'm not even talking about, going really hippie out there. I'm just talking about the basic laws of war, Geneva Conventions that we always follow. Where's the coming back from this years from now?
I mean, the first thing we know is that other countries will learn from this, right? Russia, for instance, when Russia invaded Georgia and then Ukraine, they cited America's attacks without UN Security Council approval in Iraq, right? So if you think about other powers in the world, right, this is going to lead other powers to also be far more reckless and predatory than they might have been, right? Because this is the new norm now. But also, this is very deeply linked to what Donald Trump is doing at home, right? I mean, the same basic template, which is lawlessness and spectacular, brutal violence that we see Trump inflicting in Iran, we also see him inflicting on the streets of Minnesota and other places. And so I think the Democrats really need to link these two things rather than seeing them as separate.